Maplewood was in shock. Everyone was talking about the horse that refused to let its owner be buried. It was a bizarre and puzzling situation that left everyone wondering what could be the reason behind it. The small town of Maplewood had always been a place where everyone knew each other. It was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked at night, and neighbors looked out for each other. It was in this town that Chris grew up, surrounded by the love of his parents, Tom and Sarah. From a young age, Chris was an animal lover, and he spent countless hours exploring the woods and fields surrounding the town, always with a dog or cat by his side. Chris spent most of his childhood on the farm, helping his parents with the daily chores and playing with the animals. He was particularly fond of the horses and would often spend hours grooming them and talking to them. As he grew older, his love for animals only grew stronger, and he knew that he wanted to do something with his life that involved them. His parents, Tom and Sarah, were incredibly supportive of his passion, often taking him on trips to nearby farms and animal sanctuaries to see and learn about different animals. Tom and Sarah were not wealthy, but they always found a way to make ends meet and provide for their family. They taught Chris the value of hard work and the importance of taking care of those around him. Chris and his parents had a special bond that was evident to everyone in town. They would often be seen walking together, chatting and laughing as they went about their day. Tom and Sarah were proud of the kind, compassionate young man that Chris had become, and they supported him in every way they could. When Chris tragically passed away in an accident, Tom and Sarah were devastated. They had lost their beloved son, and the horse they had helped him care for was now left without its owner. Little did they know that this horse would not let anyone bury his owner, not without putting up a huge fight. Why did the horse matter this much? Chris's dad, Tom, was a farmer who worked hard to provide for his family. He had always encouraged Chris's love for animals and had even built a small stable in their backyard so that Chris could keep his pets there. Chris's mom, Sarah, was a homemaker who took care of the house and the family. She was proud of her son's love for animals, and she often joked that Chris loved his pets more than anything else in the world. Chris's parents were his biggest supporters and confidants. He would often talk to them about his dreams and ambitions, and they would listen with rapt attention, offering advice and encouragement. They knew that their son had a big heart and a strong will, and they trusted him to make the right decisions for himself and his animals. Chris went on to study veterinary medicine at a nearby university, and after graduating, he returned to Maplewood to open his own practice. He quickly became known as the go-to vet in the area, and his compassion and dedication to his patients earned him a loyal following. He remained close to his parents, often visiting them and bringing his animals along. Tom and Sarah loved hearing about his adventures and seeing the love and care he had for his animals. They were proud of the man their son had become and the impact he was making on the world around him. It was during this time that Chris came across a sickly baby horse that had been abandoned by its mother. Chris's heart went out to the poor animal, and he couldn't bear to leave it alone to fend for itself. He knew that it would be a tough road ahead, but he was determined to give the horse a fighting chance. As he nursed the baby horse back to health, Chris felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that he had never experienced before. He poured all of his love and attention into the animal and watched with pride as it grew stronger with each passing day. Despite the challenges, Chris never gave up on the horse. He spent countless sleepless nights tending to its needs, and his parents watched in amazement at the deep bond that formed between the two of them. Over time, the horse grew to trust and rely on Chris completely, and the feeling was mutual. Chris felt a sense of fulfillment and joy that he had never experienced before, and he knew that he had found his true calling in life, caring for animals in need. As the days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, the horse grew stronger and healthier under Chris's care. They had developed a special bond that went beyond words. The horse had become more than just a pet to Chris. It was a dear friend and companion. Chris named the horse Apollo after the Greek god of light and music. Years went by, and Chris and Apollo had many adventures together. They would often go on long rides through the countryside, exploring new trails and taking in the beauty of nature. Chris was a kind and compassionate man who was loved by all who knew him. He had even started volunteering at the local animal shelter, where he helped care for abandoned and abused animals. Chris and Apollo became inseparable. They roamed the fields and woods together, exploring the world around them and enjoying each other's company. It was clear to everyone who knew them that they shared a special bond, one that went beyond the usual relationship between a human and an animal. The townspeople would often see Chris riding Apollo in the fields, and it was a sight that never failed to bring a smile to their faces. But tragedy struck when Chris died when he was involved in a fatal accident, leaving Tom and Sarah and the town devastated. And then something else happened that no one was expecting. When Tom and Sarah tried to bury Chris, Apollo refused to let them. He was acting strangely and wouldn't let anyone near Chris's body. It was a bizarre and shocking scene, and everyone was left wondering why Apollo was behaving this way. Tom and Sarah were heartbroken and confused as to why Apollo was acting this way. They had never seen him behave like this before. The horse was always gentle and obedient, but now he was acting aggressively, refusing to let anyone near Chris's body. The news of Apollo's resistance quickly spread throughout the town, and soon people from all over were coming to see the horse that wouldn't let its owner be buried. Some were skeptical, others were confused, but everyone was there witnessing Apollo's resistance. Finally, Tom and Sarah called the local veterinarian, Dr. Jones, who had been a close friend of Chris's for many years, and he had helped care for Apollo during his early days of sickness. Dr. Jones arrived at the scene, and after observing Apollo's behavior, he had a suspicion as to what was going on. As Dr. Jones walked towards Apollo, Tom and Sarah watched anxiously from a distance. They had never seen Apollo behave this way before, and they were both saddened and puzzled by his behavior. Dr. Jones knew Apollo well. He approached the horse slowly and calmly, talking to him in a soft, soothing voice. Apollo seemed to calm down at the sound of Dr. Jones's voice, but he still wouldn't let anyone near Chris's body. Dr. Jones spent some time checking on Apollo, looking for any signs of distress or injury. After a few moments, he whispered something into Apollo's ear, and the horse suddenly calmed down completely. He even allowed Dr. Jones to touch him, something he had not allowed anyone else to do since Chris's passing. Dr. Jones kept whispering something in Apollo's ear for a few minutes, and then, to everyone's surprise, Apollo suddenly calmed down and allowed them to bury Chris. Tom and Sarah were both amazed and relieved at this sudden change in Apollo's behavior. They had been worried that they wouldn't be able to bury their son properly, but now it seemed as though Apollo was ready to let him go. But what did Dr. Jones whisper to the horse that brought about the sudden shift in the animal's attitude? It was later revealed that Chris had whispered a special command into Apollo's ear when he first took him in. "Protect me always." Apollo had taken this command to heart and remained loyal to Chris even after his passing. He knew that Chris would always be with him in spirit, and he refused to let anyone take him away from his dear friend. After the burial of Chris, Apollo stayed by his grave for hours, refusing to leave his side. It was a heartbreaking scene for Chris's family and the people of Maplewood, who had gathered to pay their respects. Despite their efforts, Apollo refused to move, and it was only Dr. Jones who managed to calm him down with his gentle touch and whispered words. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but Apollo never fully recovered from the loss of his beloved owner. He would often be seen standing alone by Chris's grave, his head bowed in sorrow and his eyes filled with tears. It was as if he was waiting for Chris to come back and take him on one of their many adventures. Sadly, Apollo's health began to decline rapidly, and soon he too passed away. Tom and Sarah were devastated by the loss of Apollo. They had watched him grow from a sickly, abandoned foal to a strong and healthy horse under Chris's care. They knew how much he meant to Chris, and they had seen the deep bond between the two of them. Now, with both Chris and Apollo gone, the family felt a profound sense of loss. The town was also deeply affected by Apollo's passing. People who had heard the story of the horse that refused to let its owner be buried were heartbroken to learn that Apollo had died. They had seen the bond between Chris and Apollo and had been inspired by it. Apollo had become a symbol of loyalty and devotion in the town, and his loss was felt by all who knew him. In the weeks that followed, people came from all over to pay their respects to Chris and Apollo. They left flowers and notes of condolence at the farm, and some even held impromptu memorials in honor of the two. The outpouring of love and support from the community was a testament to the impact that Chris and Apollo had on their small town. Despite the tragedy of their loss, Tom and Sarah found comfort in the knowledge that Chris and Apollo were together again, watching over them from a place beyond. They knew that the bond between Chris and Apollo would live on in the memories of those who knew them, and that their love for each other would never fade away.